Hey guys, what's up? Dr. Shepard here. I am coming to you from my very own personal social isolation bubble in my bedroom and talking to you in a time when our coronavirus infections rates are starting to really climb. And a lot of people have come to me with the question of how do I manage my stress levels during this time. A lot of people have also asked, I'm someone who was depressed going into this. I was dealing with a depressive disorder. How do I manage now that day-to-day life is so different and I've lost my social connections with a lot of people? So I wanted to make a super quick video on some of my tips that I use to cope. If you are struggling with this stuff, you are not alone at all. So I'm going to give you these tips and it's going to sound like I have it all together. And despite the fact that I'm a psychiatrist and theoretically a mental health expert, and I know all of these tips, it's still really hard to do them. And I'm really struggling with this period of time, to be completely honest with you guys. I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling scared, guilty, sometimes helpless. All of those feelings are normal. And I think that's a first step in kind of figuring out a way to cope with them, just recognizing that they're normal. I'm feeling them too. We're all feeling some variation of very similar things. So without further ado, let me jump into some tips that you can use to cope. And as always, this is not meant to be medical advice. So always consult your therapist, your physician. They're really going to be the best source of personalized information for you. So what I would say first is there is no substitute for routine and structure, especially if you're someone who does struggle with depression. Routine and structure are going to be huge for you. So as with everything else in medicine, we have a fancy name for this sort of routine and structure building, and we call it behavioral activation therapy. So really that just means get your ass moving, and that's really going to help you do what you need to do, get yourself in the right mindset so that you're feeling better and you're feeling more confident and feeling like you're able to tackle the day. I have this white speck on my shirt and I can't handle this. So hold on, you're gonna have to watch me. There we go. All right. I'm not even taking that out when I edit it. So there you go. That's how serious this situation is. I can't even, we are in desperate times right now. But I feel better now. So thanks. So anyways, get up at this. So back to routine and structure, behavioral activation therapy. We know that that helps so much for people with depression. So what I want you to do is stick with a routine. So you're going to be getting up at the same time every day. You're going to be, going about your routine as if it's sort of a normal time in your life. So for example, I usually go to the gym in the morning, and obviously I can't go to the gym because all the gyms are closed. It's not safe to do that right now. But I can still get up, and the first thing I can do is still exercise. I am telling you this totally hypocritically because I have not done that, but I'm going to work on doing that. So one theme that we'll come back to over and over again is to not beat yourself up if you're not doing all of this stuff. Like I said, this is a super difficult time, and if all you're doing is surviving, that's okay. That's all we can ask, Anything above that is a cherry on top, and you're doing an excellent job no matter what you're doing. So, but anyways, back to the routine and structure thing. So I can't go to the gym, but what I can do is get up at the same time that I normally do, work out in my gym for, however long, then go and take my shower, get ready, and start my day. If you are somebody that works outside the home normally, having a set aside area to do your work, can be really helpful, and also a set aside time to do your work. So you want to do a start time and an end time for your workday, just like you would do with a normal workday. Build in some breaks. Also really important to get dressed. So I mentioned the showering, that's super important. And that's super important. Tell your roommates that I said they really do need to shower. And along with that, getting dressed is super important. So don't just throw on sweatpants every single day. I know it's so tempting. Every woman wants to make this quarantine a little bit more bearable by just braless the whole time. And if that's your style, go for it, comfort first. But it can be really helpful to get dressed in your actual work clothes. So it gives your mind that sense of routine that can be really comforting in these times, even if it takes a little bit of extra effort and motivation to do that. You'll notice that a lot of the things I'm talking about with this routine and motivation stuff, these are things that you're doing in the morning primarily. And that's very important, and it's not for no reason that they're all sort of clustered in the morning. Motivation is a snowball. So you really have to get it started. You have to get it rolling. And the best way to do that is first thing in the morning. The other thing you want to do first thing in the morning is not check your phone. If you're anything like me, that's usually the first place you go, and you're just totally giving your priorities to someone else for the morning immediately on picking up your phone. So put your phone aside. Other people can wait. Social media can wait. News can wait. Do something to center yourself, get yourself started, get that motivation snowball rolling. So that's all I'll say about morning routines. It's tough because you want to keep up these normal routines, but again, you're also going to be seeking comfort. And again, that's something, cut yourself some slack. Don't worry about it if you don't get it perfectly. Don't worry about it if your routine isn't perfect every day. Certainly isn't for me, but you're just kind of doing the best you can to add in some normalcy in your life. So next thing that we're going to talk about is sleep. So sleep is also super duper important. So these are sort of my top two that I'm telling you about first off. The rest are definitely important as well, but and I would say the last one's probably, the king of everything. The last one is super important. So sometimes I say things and I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but it ends up somewhere, and sometimes that's a good place and sometimes it's not a great place. But so sleep. So it's super important to preserve your sleep during this period of time, and especially if you're someone who's sensitive to or at risk for developing mood disorders anyways, mood disorders being depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety. It's important to really preserve your sleep. So most people need between 7 and 9 hours a night. Not the same for everybody, but the vast majority of people that think they're fine on 5 hours a night are not fine on 5 hours a night. So you want to really preserve that sleep. A big part of that is sleep hygiene. So I can make several videos in the future on this because it's a super important topic, but to kind of give you the nuts and bolts, you want to go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time. You want to have some sort of an evening routine that's not 5 minutes, so a little bit longer time to wind down, get yourself ready for bed. Part of the evening routine, and a few hours at least beforehand, is you want to limit the amount of blue light that you're exposed to. And blue light is typically in the form of TV screens, computers, phones. Best to sort of avoid those sources altogether. I personally have a really hard time doing that. So I've downloaded different apps on each of my devices, like Flux, for example. I think it's FL.UX, is a really good resource. It's free. And you download the app and it kind of removes some of the blue light as the sun goes down, which is really nice. So yeah, limiting blue light sources, limiting things that are going to work you up before bedtime. So exercise is great during the day, but you don't want to do it right before bed because that's going to kind of get you spun up again. You want to in general, just limit the use of caffeine and alcohol before bed. So alcohol is something people will often use to put them to sleep, but then when you actually are asleep, alcohol disturbs the rhythm of your sleep. And so you're not able to get into the proper pattern of sleep, and the end result is sleep deprivation. And then limiting caffeine is different for everybody, but at least, no caffeine after maybe 4 p.m. Many people need to limit it to after noon, no caffeine. If you find that you can't sleep despite sort of making all of these changes and you've prioritized your sleep, that's okay. Don't sweat it too much. Really, what you want to do is get up out of bed. You don't want to lay there and worry. You don't want to be freaking out about, I can't sleep. So then you're laying there and you're training yourself that when you get into your bed, you're not going to be able to sleep. So you want to get up, do something sort of engaging, but also relaxing. So when I have trouble sleeping, I'll do something like fold laundry with like some TV noise in the background, as long as you're not watching it, because blue light's bad. So do something relaxing, and then, once you're feeling tired again, go ahead and try and go back to bed. Definitely talk though with your doctor if you're having trouble sleeping, because that can be a sign that maybe you're dealing with an underlying medical disorder that could be causing the poor sleep, such as anxiety, depression, something like that. Many people also take over-the-counter supplements for sleep, and that's totally fine for most people. Again, you just want to check with your doctor and make sure. Melatonin is the one that I usually start with in my patients. You can get it over the counter, like I said. It's a very benign supplement for most people. So typically doses range between 3 milligrams and 10 milligrams a night. And you want to take it a couple hours before bedtime. So you don't want to take it right before bedtime, but a couple hours, because it works to sort of help your body ease into the natural rhythm that it has. So it doesn't necessarily just sedate you like something like Benadryl would do. But it sort of works with your natural melatonin cycles to kind of promote sleep. So that's why you want to take it more around dinner time. So that's about sleep, and that's one of the most important ways that you can take care of your body. But other things that you want to do during this period of stress is the things that I say over and over again. I'm sorry. You want to try your best and eat healthy. Listen, I know. Comfort eaters, raise your hands. I crushed an entire bag of popcorn today. I ate cereal for dinner. So anyways, it's not pretty over here. But in general, if you can at least make sure that you're getting some vegetables every day, you're eating things that are generally on the healthier side, cut yourself some slack, especially if you're a comfort eater like me. That might be your way of coping with this stuff. But you do want to keep yourself healthy so that, God forbid, you do end up sick, you're able to, have a strong immune response. Similarly, like I talked about a little bit earlier, exercise. Really, during these difficult times, you want to exercise kind of every day. And for some people that might be too much, but if you really are doing this, an everyday exercise program, exercise can be something as simple as walking for like 10 minutes, and along those lines, you want to kind of get out of your house as much as you can. So this may not be practical for people living in cities, but if you're lucky enough to sort of have your own outdoor space, then just spending some time out there, obviously staying away from other people and not gathering in groups, but you could go on a hike, you could go to a park, as long as it's not something like a playground with lots of surfaces that could potentially be contaminated. All of that is great. So another thing to do, physically we are all isolated from each other, which sucks a lot. We can still connect with each other even when we're physically separate. So Skype, Facebook, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Zoom, you guys probably know more than I do. You can use all of these different platforms and even social media platforms to kind of chat with other people, check in with other people, spend time with other people. There are a lot of people that are doing things now, like having book clubs with their friends, or doing movie watch parties where, they'll all watch a movie together. There are people that are doing exercise programs together. So you put your friend on, on FaceTime or whatever platform you're using, and then you guys do your workout together. Even though you're not together, you still get that camaraderie, and you still get to cheer each other on and motivate each other. So you definitely, even if you can't be physically with other people, you still need to be socially connected to other people, especially, again, if you're someone who is prone to depression or prone to anxiety. It's really important, and it's going to take extra effort now that we're not sort of just naturally bumping into people at work or at the grocery store as often, that kind of stuff. It's going to take extra effort, but definitely prioritize getting some socialization in. So another thing that can be super helpful is to think about things that make you happy ahead of time. So if you're anything like me, when you get into a funk, when you get anxious, when you get sad, when you get angry, your mind is not able to really game plan, okay, well, what should I do to pull myself out of this? No, you're pissed or you're angry or you're sad and you're not thinking about that. So it really helps to have something together beforehand. A lot of people just make a list of, if I'm feeling this kind of way, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. You have a list of 4 or 5 things that usually cheer you up, and you can go down that list. Similarly to that, I think if you are privileged enough to have a space to do this, if you can set up kind of a calm space, I hate describing it like this, but it's a good description, almost like a shrine. Not that it's going to be religious in nature at all, but it can be if that's what you want it to be. But having a calm space for you to retreat to, if you're feeling stressed, can be super helpful. So it might be just like the corner of your bedroom. Maybe it's outside. Maybe it's, you have a chair on your porch that you could go to if you're feeling stressed. If you're like a lot of moms, bathroom. If you can't find your mom, she's hiding in the bathroom. That's why. So as long as you have a place that you can go, and preferably someplace that looks nice, that is free of clutter, that can be really helpful to get you through a tough period. Other things you can do. Distraction, always a friend. You can't be thinking about things that upset you if you are distracted and you're just not thinking about them. You want to work on a gratitude practice that can really help with feelings of stress, anxiety, depression. There's a lot of research behind it. Much of the research has looked at having people write down 3 things every day that they're grateful for. And the research has shown that that can really boost your mood pretty significantly. So, and it's okay if you're like, this is BS, this still sucks, I'm not grateful for anything. Forcing yourself to get into that mindset, even if you don't necessarily believe it all right away, can still be really helpful. So kind of a fake it till you make it thing. Like I said in other videos about anxiety, you want to limit the news exposure that you have. The news is not going to tell you positive things about this. They're not going to bring up nearly as many stories about triumph and hope as they are about the scary stuff, because it's the scary stuff that makes people tune in. So you really want to limit your exposure. Choose 1 or 2 news outlets a day that you trust and check in with them once a day, preferably not before bed, and kind of just limit it to that. Anything more than that, and it's not really helpful, you don't really need to know all of that, you're just kind of stressing yourself out. And I'm as guilty of doing it as anybody else, but try your best to limit it if you can. The other thing that I was really struggling with, and am still really struggling with, is a feeling of helplessness. So I am a medical doctor. I am not on the front lines of this, though. That's really our emergency doctors, our ICU doctors right now. And we're super grateful for them and super proud of the incredible work that they have done so far. But I think for myself and other healthcare professionals, there's a sense of guilt if you're not in those camps, because you see them really struggling. And one thing that I found helpful was finding a way that I could contribute. So part of that has been trying to drum up masks, gowns, that sort of thing, talking to government officials, so writing to government officials to kind of spur them to action, trying my best to keep my patients healthy and out of the emergency room so that that space can be used for other people who are sicker. And just kind of focusing on the mental health aspects of this. So, that's sort of my way that I feel like I can contribute. Your way might be very different, but there's something that we can all do that can kind of help in a way combat the feeling of helplessness that a lot of us, I think, are struggling with right now. So next thing that can be helpful is using CBT and mindfulness techniques. So we've talked a little bit about mindfulness before. I think we've sort of alluded to CBT. Again, there are great resources on YouTube, everywhere online. So for CBT, so I'm saying C as in cat, B as in boy, T as in Tom, cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is gonna include techniques like challenging negative thoughts that you're having, taking the channel that your brain is operating on and sort of switching the channel, putting things in perspective. And we've talked about mindfulness before, but a big component of mindfulness that's helpful in this instance is going to be recognizing that your thoughts are thoughts, and not necessarily buying into them right away. So I've given you a lot of different things that you can do, but you are by no means need to do them all. And I don't expect anybody to get this perfectly. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, I'm struggling with. And even though I know how helpful it can be, it's really hard to actually put it into practice sometimes. But just know that this is a very weird and scary period of time that we're in. There's never been anything like this before in our lifetimes, for the vast majority of us. And it's really scary and it sucks a lot. And if you're struggling, that's okay. Like I've seen online people talking about doing these quarantine glow ups, and maybe you are that person who can glow up during this quarantine, and more power to you. I'm gonna be looking ratchet by the time I leave. It's gonna be bad, but adjust your expectations. Like, we can come back from this afterwards. This is not a forever thing. This is temporary. And once we all emerge from our caves, we can start to work on, whatever we want to work on, get ourselves back to where we feel like we should be. Be kind to yourself. If you have ever thought about doing therapy before, now is a great time to pull the trigger on that and start. There are a lot of therapists, almost all therapists are offering some sort of telemedicine, or I guess teletherapy, telehealth, telephone visits, virtual visits, and that can be super helpful. So definitely reach out to somebody to get some help. And, if you're really struggling with this and it's impacting your ability to function day to day, then that's a good reason to call your doctor. So you may need a medicine or something to help you get through this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that kind of think, because there's so much stigma about these illnesses, a lot of people think, if I can get through it without treating myself with medication or without taking a medication, then that's what I should do. And it's just not true. Medications are, like all of the other things I talked about, valuable potential tools in your toolbox, and you should use them if you need them. But again, this is temporary. Cut yourself some slack. Hold on. Things will get better. Know that everybody is feeling the strain of this. It's a scary time. We will get through this. Drop me a comment below if you have any specific questions, or even better, if you want to talk about what ways you're using to kind of cope with this stuff. And I will see you soon. Bye.